Hi, I'm attorney James Ratchford, or if you were my Facebook friend, I'm just Jay Ratch. And I want to talk to you about one of my favorite short little documents, the Constitution of the United States of America. You know, this is boring Schoolhouse Rock stuff, I guess, and that's okay. I'm not as fun as Schoolhouse Rock, but I like to talk about this, and I want to share with you what this is. Now, I'm an attorney, and I'm a veteran, which means that I have sworn an oath to support and uphold this document, the Constitution of the United States of America. This is what matters. This is what makes me an American, not the flag, not the location, but my adherence to this document. This is what makes me a patriot, is the fact that I have put this first and that I have put my life on the line, put my career on the line. I have laid it all on the line for this. So I want to read to you a couple sections of it. We're not going to read the whole thing. I'm not going to make you sit here and go through the entire Constitution of the United States, but let's look at some basic parts of it. Let's look at the preamble. This often moves me to tears. I have to be sure that I'm in a stable enough position to read this with dry eyes, and I may not get through it, but I'm going to try. The Constitution of the United States of America. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And that's how it begins. I love that paragraph. Just my favorite part is definitely to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. I've been thinking for a while about doing a video just about the blessings of liberty and what that entails, and I think we'll come back to that a little more, but I want to just finish this video by just doing a brief overview of the rest of the Constitution, because I think a lot of us like to talk about the Constitution and don't necessarily know what it says and what's in it. So let's give you a quick overview. I'm just going to kind of go page by page, and this is broken down into articles. So the first part after the preamble is Article 1. Article 1 is the first. It is the legislative powers. Section 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. And it goes into the details of how those are composed. And if you've had any basic civics education from your history class or elementary school, you probably know the basics of that, so we won't go through all of that. And there's some sections that go into some pretty good details on things like the elections and how that all works. Um, and then we get ultimately to Section 8, the enumerated powers. And this is very important. This is where we get into the question of is that constitutional? Is that not constitutional? Well, whether it's in Section 8, most of the time, is the answer to whether that is constitutional. The Congress shall have power, and there's all these powers, to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, to borrow money on the credit of the United States, to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes, to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies. There's a lot more in here. To establish post offices, patents and copyrights, um, courts inferior to the Supreme Court, piracies, declare war, provide and maintain a navy, naval forces, land forces, militias. There's a lot in here in the enumerated powers, Article 1, Section 8. Now, there's some stuff in here that's interesting about slavery that has been revised by later portions, but it's interesting history to read through this. There's this interesting thing called the privilege of writ of habeas corpus, Article 1, Section 9, Paragraph 2. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended, unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. That's come up. That's come up in 2020 in how we've talked about what's been going on with our government. That's in play, and it's a clause that most people haven't read. It's in here. Read it. We've got all sorts of interesting stuff. All sorts of interesting stuff in Article 1. But then we get to Article 2. Article 2 is a lot of people's favorites these days when we've got a controversial president. Article 1, Article 2, Section 1, the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America, He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, and together with the vice president chosen for the same term, be elected as follows. And that goes into some election stuff, which isn't even current anymore because that's been superseded by an amendment. So we'll get into that later. There's the 12th Amendment, I think, and the 25th Amendment, both of which come into play on this. And we can get into the amendments. I'm not going to go into that great of a degree of detail on this. I want to keep this video under 10 minutes. So we've got a lot of stuff in Article 2 about the powers of the president. It's actually not as detailed as Article 1 is. But we've got some stuff in here. We've got Section 2 saying that he's the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy. We've got Section 3 about the State of the Union. Section 4 about impeachment. And then that's it. That's all there is to it. That's Article 2. It doesn't really go into a whole lot of detail. It's a short, it's on this fine print document, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 pages. So it's short. Then we get into Article 3. Article 3, as an attorney, is my favorite. It's the courts. And it lays out that there's a Supreme Court. And you know what? This is in the news too. You should read Article 3 and see what Article 3 has to say about the Supreme Court, what goes in it. It doesn't say, for example, that there's 9 justices. Not in there. So what does that mean? It means that the Constitution lays stuff out, and if you're going to talk about whether something's constitutional or not, you should probably read it. Article 3, the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in inferior courts, as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior, and shall, at stated times, receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. You can't give the Supreme Court justices or any federal judge a pay cut while they're in office for their lifetime terms because they serve during good behavior. So what does that mean? Really interesting. I think if you're a nerd like me, it's worth reading into. And then there's a lot more of case law, and there's a lot of stuff to understanding the Constitution. Article 4, this is the full faith and credit section. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state, and the Congress may by general laws prescribe the manner in which such acts, records, and proceedings shall be proved and the effect thereof. This is kind of complicated, but it's essentially saying the relationships between the states as the federal government regulates. This lays out the overall structure of federalism, and that's pretty important as well. We've got an article for amendments. I'm sorry, we get to amendments before we get to states. Article 5 is the process of amendment. And you want to look at that. There's 26 amendments in the Constitution. 26, I think. Are we up to 27 yet? I think we're just at 26 right now. No, I'm sorry. We're up to 27. It's been 27 for a long time. Article 6, all debts, contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be valid as against the United States. This is about the validity of the Constitution. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. That's the supremacy clause that says the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, along with treaties and laws passed by Congress. Again, very meaningful. Finally, we get to the ratification. Article 7 is just the ratification saying that, that the Constitution is valid. And then we've got a couple pages of signatures. We've got, now on the big wall copies, we'll have this in proper signatures. In my book, it's just a list of names. My favorite here, New York Alexander Hamilton. Who doesn't love Hamilton, right? There's a lot of interesting people in here. James Madison. I don't think George Washington signed the Constitution. So that's kind of a fun bit of trivia. George Washington, not a signatory. And then we get into the Bill of Rights. I'm not going to read you the Bill of Rights right now, but it's in here. We've got amendments 1 through 10. And I might do some videos on my favorite amendments if people are interested in that. Again, we've got all the way up to 27 amendments, and each of them is interesting. If you are interested in this document, read it. There is a lot to know about the Constitution of the United States. There's a lot of videos, there's a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of content on the internet, on YouTube, and everywhere. Some of it is good, some of it is bad. I would be happy to answer any questions. If you have any questions, ask me a question. If there's any interest, I'd love to do a live Q&A session. This is just the little book. I've got books that are this thick on constitutional law, on the broad overview of cases. I mean, the volumes of cases that spell out constitutional law would fill this room front to back. So, the Constitution, read it.